U.S. President Barack Obama has arrived in Cuba for a historic visit to the island nation and talks with its leader. This is the first time a sitting U.S. president travels to Cuba after nearly 90 years. Obama is scheduled to start his trip by visiting the old city of Havana. He will meet with his counterpart Raul Castro during his three-day visit to discuss trade and political reform. The two governments restored diplomatic relations in December last year. Despite the historic detente, though, Washington's decades-long sanctions against Cuba are still in place. Obama's visit is hoped to result in sealing the renewal of ties between the two countries. Let's speak to Gloria Estela La Riva. She's a Latin America expert, and she joins us via Skype from San Francisco. Many thanks for joining us here on Press TV. Now, first of all, what do you make of this visit? It's being hailed as a historic visit. Do you see it that way as well?
Yes, it's a historic visit. The fact that the United States has not had a president visit, or even up until a few months ago, have any kind of discussion with the president, Fidel Castro, and now President Raul Castro of Cuba for more than 55 years. It's historic in that sense, but in addition, it gives hope to many people that this really could be the beginning of the end of the blockade, which is an absolute necessity before there is truly normalization of relations between the two countries.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up. Will Obama be able to achieve anything, though, by this visit, or will it remain forever a symbolic move, so to speak?
I think first there's two parts to this answer, and that is that I don't think that the Obama administration or those who support his efforts to lift the blockade are doing it because they want to truly respect Cuba's sovereignty, independence, and leave them to their own system of socialism. Obama himself said last December that U.S. policy of blockade had failed to advance United States interests in Cuba and also Latin America. It was an admission that the U.S. is quite isolated by its harsh aggression against Cuba with the blockade. But in addition, there are only a few measures that President Obama can do as executive of the United States, because lifting the economic and financial blockade in its entirety is now an act of Congress. However, there have been a few things done lately that there is now direct postal service. Obama now says that Cuban entities can use U.S. dollars in transactions, in purchasing items from Cuba, food and other goods. However, there's a great obstacle, and that is that even though banks are now being told they will not be sanctioned for doing transactions with Cuba, the blockade still makes many businesses quite wary, especially banks, in actually establishing those economic relations.
And before I let you go, Ms. La Riva, of course, as you've just pointed out too over here, that this expansion of ties, so to speak, or resetting of ties there, is not because of, it's not going to be a relationship of mutual respect, so to speak. The U.S. has its own interests to follow. Is this a risk that the Cubans are willing to take for the sake of economic perks they may get?
I think the visit of Obama is a very important symbol. It shows with the attitude of a very gracious, courteous, and respectful attitude by all the Cuban people. He's being given a very warm welcome and will be treated respectfully as a head of state, even despite all these years of aggression and hostility by the U.S. And the fact that the blockade still exists shows the openness of the Cuban people having normal relations with the U.S. while still maintaining their principles. But I'd like to point something out. This last few days, President Obama extended and re-signed the executive order declaring that Venezuela is a risk and a dangerous security threat to the United States. So it shows that these are really two tracks to the same objective of the U.S. wanting to return Latin America to the backyard that it once was, trying to overturn governments like Cuba, Venezuela, but as well Bolivia and Ecuador.
All right, we'll keep a close eye on the situation, of course. That's Gloria Estela La Riva, Latin America expert, joining us via Skype from San Francisco. Ms. La Riva, thank you very much indeed for your comments here on Press TV.